So when it comes to read it later services, there are really only a few options out there. On the Apple platforms, you have their built-in read later service. You have Pocket, you have Instapaper, which are cross-platform, and they'll actually store full articles for you. All three of those options. And then you have something like it's just any bookmarking service. I don't use any, so I can't actually think of a name right now. But you can bookmark the things you want to read later as well, and then just click through to the sites and view them that way. And that can be good in supporting creators because you're going to get any ads they have, anything like that. But particularly for some sites, like Macworld, which is crazy with ads, I actually hate using those things. I actually hate viewing those sites, so I must use, like, if I'm going to read them, I use a read it later service because their ads are crazy, even with some type of content blocking put on my iPad. But I actually don't use anything I've mentioned so far for my read it later service. What I use is DEVONthink, particularly DEVONthink To Go on my iPad. And that's what we're going to look at today, how I use DEVONthink To Go as my read it later service for my iPad. Buckle up. So what are we looking at right here? This is, I guess you'd say it Fiery Feeds. They don't actually spell it like fiery. It's F-I-E-R-Y. Fiery Feeds, which is an RSS client that I'm going to be looking at in the next few weeks. And let's say I want to save 2 articles. So let's say I'm going to save this 10 trips for the Magic Keyboard from Mac Rumors, because I want to read that later. And I'll go to the share sheet, and then I'll hit DEVONthink. And then from there, I will use the arrow, right? This is all filled in properly. Very occasionally, it doesn't, in which case I had to try to get the right title in there. Hit next, and then this is what I always use as clutter or markdown clutter-free, because it has the best chance of stripping everything and making it as legible as possible. Quite a while ago, I did a video on how to capture content in DEVONthink To Go. So I'll link that up above if you want to see all the different ways you can bring content in DEVONthink To Go. Right? I could actually just use the bookmark method, which I talked about in the intro here, and bookmark it. Let's hit done. That's sent off. And let's say that I want to read this Cal Newport article as well. Again, I can hit the share sheet. This works from anything, right? This works in Safari, the share sheet, and I'll save this Cal Newport article for later. Markdown clutter-free. Done. So now I have 2 articles saved. Let's head over to DEVONthink. So we have a few things in here that are just, right? There's a bunch coming in. So what I hope to do with this is achieve some semblance of inbox zero every Friday. And I've really only been trying to tackle this on the last 2 or 3 Fridays. And I've done good with anything new. But I haven't done good on anything old. So that's kind of like, remember this tags thing is right here. Anything below this is old. That's a shipping notice for my wife's running backpack. Yeah. And so when I come in here, we can see how Apple reinvented the cursor for iPad, 10 tricks. So you can see I went in here. Now it did not bring in the video at the top, which is ultimately fine with me. I don't care. I'm more going to be scanning this one for ideas for a future article. And if I think it's good, then I can actually copy the link. I could do this. I could hit copy here, copy URL, right? I can actually copy a link to the item in DEVONthink, or I can copy a URL. And then I can either go back to it, to DEVONthink, or I can go back to this. And the reason you might go back to DEVONthink is I can write in here, I can write comments on the article. I can tag the article in different places. And that lets me have this article kind of for later. And then I could search, and this will search everything actually. I could search iPad, right? Why the iPad is the personal gadget of the decade. And I can see all the articles that I've saved, even some of my writing. This one here is why I was wrong about mouse support, right? You can see that twice. Building an ergonomic iPad station. That is actually my article on it. Right, that's an article I wrote. I don't have the date. I can probably pull it out of here though. Created August 21st. So that is really how I use it. So I would read through this. I will claim, actually I already know that because kind of prepped. I prepped for this, clearly. Of course you prep for these videos. But because I prepped for this, I know that I do want to save this and look at doing an article of it on some fashion. So I'm going to copy the URL, and I'm going to go to Notion. See, I'm actually recording these 3 today. And I'll just go over here and hit Magic Keyboard Tricks. Now, the thing is, I don't, for this video at least, I may do it without the Magic Keyboard, because there's some in there that are just good. I don't want the reference necessarily to the newsprint. The newsprint's a great site, though. You should follow that one. Newsprint.co. So maybe that's trackpad / iPad OS / Magic Keyboard Tricks. And this is the type of iPad. There's no schedule. So I look back at my editorial calendar. I said this in my Notion review. There doesn't support trackpads very well yet. I've got it right here with one comment, because that's how you have to put the data in. So as I sort through these, what I aim for is every Friday, I go through them and I actually file everything. I want this to be basically inbox 0 by Fridays. I know that's a receipt. So I'll collect other things in here like my receipts. It's a 2020 receipt. Move. I'm going to do some of this with automation on the Mac OS client as well. Although I don't run it on my Mac very much. My Mac is just kind of sitting out of frame here. The monitor is. So I don't run it very much there because I just don't want to. That's it. I don't want to. Because I don't use my Mac very often, really. Certainly not for content creation, not for reading RSS articles. I use it a little bit for coding. That's it. Probably 1 or 2 days a week I get on it for coding because it feels like the right platform at that point when I'm working on those things. That's how I use it, really. The real big thing here is that I want to impress upon you is that I ask myself a question when I'm going through my articles is, if not now, when? And the truth is never. Truth is usually never. Usually people's read it later services are a long list of things they thought were interesting once, and they're never going to get back to. So they're just never going to get back to it. So why do you even bother with it? Even for this. So this article that I was already talking about, I'm not going to really read it. I scanned through it and I should really like this keyboard thing. I use that it says setting per keyboard where I can remap like caps lock or any of the other modifiers to whatever. So I actually map caps lock to escape on my keyboards. It's actually made this Acco 3068, which was only okay, into a fine keyboard for iPadOS now. I've been using it on iPadOS for a couple weeks and it's been great. But the rest of this stuff, like, I don't know, I'm not going to come back and read this. This is not an article I really need to read. It was one to like, that might be a good idea for a video. No, that's actually neat too. Easel mode and other orientations. Interesting. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm actually just going to file it. I'm going to hit move and I'm going to go back to, it goes into my research. Basically everything like this goes into research, right? And then in theory, see, I've got a lot of stuff here. This is clearly, I've got more to do here. But I want to go through, we'll say subscription hostages. Let's start with this one. That's an old signal versus noise. And what I would go through is I would go through and read it. And as I go through and read it, trackpad's not responding now. I would actually come in here and I would tag as I go. So this is about subscriptions. It's about fatigue. I try to spell them right. Subscription fatigue, right? That's it, because I'm not actually going to read it. This is old enough now that I'm probably not going to, if I'm not going to read it now, then when? So I am giving myself a bit of a pass. There's my trackpad. Not sure why I came back. I give myself a little bit of a pass on some of the old articles currently because there are a lot of them. There's so many of them. And now some of them too, right? Like if I'm going to go into this is more of a study the impact of open workspace on human collaboration. So I would actually like to sit down and read this and like annotate it. But in a scientific study, let's go full screen here. And let's zoom in. Pinch to zoom. Does pinch to zoom work here? It does. So even with that, even with the trackpad on DEVONthink To Go, it does. So, right, this is talking about just what an open office does to people. And usually the most important part, if you want to understand kind of what the paper is doing, you're not going to look into the methodology, would be the discussion. So you can I will read the discussion on it, I will make some notes on it, and then if I think it's pertinent, I will go back and read the rest of it. Right, you might usually read the introduction, right, to the organization, this part here, the introduction, and then I'm not going to look at necessarily how they did it. I'll glance through how they did it to make sure it sounds reasonable, and then I would jump to the end and go through the discussion where they're saying, hey, this is kind of what happened. But I want to go through that, do it, and tag it as I go. And I will just tag it, like I'll pop open this view to tag as I go through it. And then I'll put a quick summary in the comments as well, because the summary becomes searchable in DEVONthink as well. Then I'll file it off to research. So I'm letting myself have a little bit of a pass on this in theory when I've only got, because I don't save a lot of stuff, right? You can see I saved 2 articles now. So I have 1, 2, 3, and I think 3. And this one I already read. This was from my writing coach. So I'm going to stuff that back in research. So I already know I read that one. I did the job for her. So I will go through and, like, there's only 4 articles for this week. It's Thursday. And I saved 2 specifically because of now. I usually wouldn't have saved the one about the iPad tips. I would just glance through it quickly, file it if I wanted, or like put it in Notion like you saw me do, and that's it. Even the Cal Newport one, I even on the RSS end with, say, Cal Newport, I have the if not now, when. If I'm not going to read it now, am I really going to read it later? And DEVONthink, because it's also my research tool, because it's where I store all my research, if I'm not gonna like refer to it later, then I don't even bother saving it, usually. Unless we get to sites like Macworld, which is terrible with all those ads, because they're just crazy. They're so interfering in the reading experience that it's just terrible. That's it. That's how I do a read it later service on my iPad with DEVONthink To Go. And technically that works on DEVONthink as well if I was looking at my Mac. And that's it. How I think about it. If not now, when? So if you're not going to read it now, when are you going to read it? And if you're like, oh, I'm going to totally read it tomorrow at this time, then read it tomorrow at that time, or just file it because you're never going to get to it. And it's an open commitment that you're never going to get to. So just scrap it because you don't need those. If you like the video, you can click like below. If you love the video, you can subscribe. If you really loved it and you love my stunning visage, then you can go to patreon.com/CurtisMcHale, where you can support the channel. And that helps me continue to get out videos, continue to get tech stuff to review, and just continue to spend time making sure that I get videos for you to help you do your work more effectively and get the most out of your iPad. Have a great day.